This is the Hallmarkies podcast, and today we are doing something very exciting and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking all things Twilight. And today we have with us special guests and Twilight experts, Amy.
Hello.
And Lisa.
Hi.
Ladies, let's get to it. Today, October 5th, is the 13th anniversary of the Twilight book being released. And this year, in November, is going to be the 10th anniversary of the first Twilight movie. So, Amy, could you just tell us, what's your relationship with Twilight? How did you two crazy kids meet?
Oh, well, I read a lot as a kid. I was one of those weird kids that started reading super, super early. So it was hard for the librarian to find stuff that I wanted to read that was also, appropriate for my age group. So I was in the 6th grade. I think I was 11. And she's like, well, there are these Twilight books. The movie's coming out in November. And she gave it to me, and she's like, you're going to have to ask your mom, though, if it's okay for you to read this. Because, it was, kind of controversial. I was only 11. So I gave them to my mom first. My mom read all of them. And she Post-it noted the pages I wasn't allowed to read. Yeah. So that's how I read Twilight for the first time. And I fell in love with it. Absolutely loved it. My mom and we went and saw the movie together. She actually went and saw it the night it came out with her friend because she had to preview it before I was allowed to watch it. But that's how I ended up falling in love with it. I love Twilight so much to the point where I actually had back surgery when I was 12, right before New Moon came out, and I wasn't supposed to sit for more than 30 minutes at a time because of my back surgery. But when New Moon came out, I brought 4 pillows into a theater and just so I could see that movie. So I love it so much.
Excellent. And then Lisa, how about you? Your mom also put Post-it notes on the pages.
She did. It was actually pretty clever of her. No, that is awesome, by the way. That makes me very happy. Because my daughter, who's 10, is actually reading Twilight for the first time, and she keeps saying stuff. I'm like, girl, I know, man, just wait. I'm like, yes, let's get into it. So I came into it kind of the same time Amy did, right before the first movie. Long story short, in a very small amount of time, I had twins, I took a new job, and I moved cities. And with all that together, I kind of found myself in a pretty low place. It was kind of, some things going on, and I was reading Entertainment Weekly, that one with the crazy cover with before the first movie where they're both super pale and hugging each other and blood's coming out of their mouth. And I was like, oh, it's the kid from Harry Potter. And I was like, well, good for him. He's going to be in a new movie. I was like, good for him. So I started reading, and I told my husband, he's like, oh, the books, the ones, that we always see with I was like, yeah. So he went to Half Price Books at that time, and he brought me a copy of the first Twilight. And I read it in 2 days, and I was like, shut up, I need more. And the other 2 were out. This was right before Breaking Dawn, before the first movie. So I just devoured them. And then I found a lot of people online that were super into it, and it kind of grew from there. And I may or may not have gone to the premieres.
Yeah, the fancy ones or midnight showings?
No, flew to LA to go to the actual red carpets.
Girl, you so fancy.
I was really into the fandom. I had friends that had blogs like Twilight and Robert Pattinson blogs. Yeah, I was super into it for a very long time. Yeah.
I feel like we have greatness on the podcast right now.
I live in California. I'm from the LA area, and my mom, I was too young. She wouldn't let me go to the premieres. She let me go to premiere parties at the local theater, but she wouldn't let me go to LA and go to the premieres. I'm so sad about it.
No, I didn't go to all of them. I know that it sounds like, well, I didn't go to all of them. No, I went to there was a small group of us that went to New Moon, and then by that time our little internet family had grown, and so when Eclipse came out, there was 40 of us that met from all across the country and went. And now I had a blast, but I'm not as forward as a lot of my friends are, so they got super close, and I was just more I'll just stay back here and see everybody walk by. And I was like, oh, look, oh, there they are. Oh my God, yeah. So that was the extent of it, but it was really cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. Great work. Very jealous. Super jealous. One time, some cast members came to the theaters in Utah before the Eclipse movie. So that was pretty fancy.
Oh, and I did go to the TwyCon in Dallas.
Ooh.
Oh,
There was only
lucky.
one, and I did go to that. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
We need more TwyCons. I fell in love with the book first, right when it came out, in like 2015, 2005. One of my best friends in high school, my freshman year, when we were sophomores, she was like, okay, I know we love these Mediator books by Meg Cabot, and there's another book called Twilight. That's not the one from the Mediator books. It's a new one. So I was like, okay, let's read it. So we read them, and it was gone from there. That was it. And I really loved the movies a lot. I saw the first Twilight movie in theater 13 times. Fun fact, that is not the movie I've seen the most times in theaters. But I really loved them. I got to the point where I was like, okay, we're learning about the werewolves right now. I'm going to go to the bathroom for this part. But yeah, so I really loved the books when they came out. And then also, I love the movies. So let's talk about, what did you guys like in the books that they don't have in the movies? Amy?
Oh goodness, it's been a while since I watched all the movies. I recently reread all the books though. Goodness, I'm trying to think. I wish they did more with in the second movie specifically with Jacob and Bella. I wish they had more of them in the garage, doing, working on the bikes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they had more of that in the movie. Also, I feel like in the movies they left out a lot of Alice and Bella's relationship. I feel like they kind of just became best friends, and there wasn't, like, they didn't hang out and stuff, like, as much as was mentioned in the books. I'm trying to think of, like, other stuff. I miss the backstories because they didn't really give as much backstories for all the characters as were in the books. There wasn't really a lot of Rosalie's backstory. Kind of Jasper's a little. I wish they would have had that. Yeah, I think that's it.
Lisa?
Yeah, kind of the same. I mean, it's been a while, to be honest with you. I mean, my daughter is actually, reading it, but I'm not. I should probably try and read with her. And of course, we've watched all the movies because she's obsessed, so we've already watched the movies. But I remember kind of feeling like you, Amy, when I was watching in, like, the movies at the time they were coming out, I was like, man, they're leaving out so much good stuff, so much of the, like, leading up to the actual relationship, like all their, like, meetings and, like, talking and discussing, and then especially with Alice and Bella, and I was just like, it all just felt really rushed. I love the movies, I had a great time, but looking back on it, I was like, there was so much more that could have happened. There's so much more that they could have dived into.
My main thing that I wish that they had in the movies is, I feel like they don't let Bella be funny at all in the movies, and I think she's actually quite funny in the books.
Yeah.
And, like, even though, like, a lot of her humor is stuff, like, in her head, when she says stuff out loud, she is sometimes really funny, and they didn't really let Kristen Stewart do that, so that's my main thing. But there were some things also that I really liked that they did in the movies. I really loved Jasper. I thought he was so funny. Every time he is on screen in that first movie, I am hysterical because he is so funny in that movie. He, like, he's just, like, constant, like, pain. Like, he always looks like he's dying. He does such a great job.
Yeah, it always looks like he has to, like, go to the restroom and there's nothing available, like no porta potties or nothing, and he's just, like, trying to.
Well, yeah, it's because he's, like, trying to not eat people.
Yeah.
And he nailed it. He's so
murder everybody in the room.
I really love Jasper in the first movie especially, and then also in the New Moon when they do the, like, November, October thing.
Yes.
Gut-wrenching. When I read the book, I was like, this is so sad and so clever, and then I was very concerned how they were going to handle it in the movie.
Yeah.
I saw it for the first time. I was just bravo, well done, excellent work.
Yeah. I remember, like, shouting "shut up" when I turned the page and it went from month to month, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, that was painful.
Yeah, it was. And I thought it was brilliant. I mean, it was probably this sounds rude, but it was probably the most brilliant piece of writing she had done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like not as like, but like I think it was a good device to just show how lost she was for those months.
Right.
Amy, were there any things in the movies that you really loved?
That I really loved.
Well, aside from just the fact that like, oh, it's the book made into a movie, hooray.
Yeah. Taylor Lautner exceeded expectations of what I thought Jacob Black could be. But there was one thing in these movies that I really, really disliked.
Mm-hmm.
That I super disliked. And I don't like to tell people this because sometimes it ruins their movie watching experience. But in the first movie, Kristen Stewart blinks so many times. And like, I just can't, I don't know why her facial movements in that movie, it just grinds my gears so much because she blinks. Like, someone did the math once. She blinks more times than is like a normal human would. And yeah, anyways, Kristen Stewart was not my favorite. Like, I think someone else could have been Bella. But other than that, they're amazing. That's a weird thing to be nitpicky about. I'm sorry, but like, it's. Yeah.
You can nitpick or anything you love from the movies or nitpicks.
Oh goodness. Alice. Just Alice. Just Alice. Alice is amazing.
How about you, Lisa Lou?
I was more of a Charlie.
Oh, Charlie's so good.
I loved him in those movies. He was hilarious. I was obsessed with him and his cop stash, and I just was like, I'm here for Charlie and all about it. Every time he was on, I just thought he was hilarious. So he pretty much made the movies for me.
Agreed. And I will have to say, though, this is going to sound ridiculous. My favorite part of all of the movies is in Breaking Down Part 2, the closing credits. Because I just thought it was such a brilliant, it's my favorite closing credit sequence of all time, because it was so brilliant the way that they were able to show all of the people who were major players throughout the entire series, pay tribute to them. And the most brilliant piece of it for me was when they were able to do the two Victorias in such a like seamless and like classy way. I was so proud of them.
Yeah. I was actually really pleasantly surprised with the last movie because, reading the books, and I don't know about you guys, but, I found book 4 to be pretty disappointing, like in terms of the whole series. But, and so I was kind of like, well, it's the last movie. So, you're like the last part of the whole thing. So of course I watched, but I was just like, I actually thought that was done really well. I thought, oh my God, we saw it in a large group and all of us were like, wait, what's happening? Oh my gosh. And then it just totally threw us, and it worked for me a lot. And I was just I was glad that they took it in a slightly different way, even though in the end nothing really happened.
Yeah. Amy Lou?
Yeah. I think that second movie would have been really kind of boring, at least for people who hadn't read the books, if they hadn't have done the like fake battle scene, like where it was like Alice showing what could happen. Yeah.
I think it was brilliant. I think the movies, they started out in a fun place for me, but I think it's only fun for me because I spent so much time watching the background characters. I admittedly, I don't feel like the leads did their best in the first movie. And I don't think the tone was necessarily the best for the book, but I think all the background characters killed it in that first movie and makes it worth it for me. But I think as the show progresses, and basically by Eclipse, I think everyone really knows who they are as their characters. So the movies are better from that. And the tone is more in line with what the books wanted to be. Yeah. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching the first one is kind of jarring because it's so blue. And it's so overtly just really, really blue and white. And especially now that we have, really, really high res TVs and you can see in super detail, like how off the makeup and like contact lenses are, it kind of throws me off now that when I rewatch them, but it's still really fun. And there's nothing like Edward walking into that cafeteria for the first time. Still gets me.
Still gets me. I will have to say, though, I will forever and always be disappointed with how they styled Rosalie in that first movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? Nothing. She's still gorgeous. It's just she could have been more. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to ask you guys, how do you think Twilight is like a Hallmark movie, and how is it not? And so for me, basically, obviously, the easy one is like, oh, it's about people who fall in love. That's like a Hallmark movie. Right. And also, they're pretty chaste for the most part, which is a tenet of Hallmark movies. But what makes you think it's different, aside from the fact that they are vampires and Hallmark won't do that for me?
That'd be awesome if they did. That'd be great. I kind of feel like they're the same. I know you asked if they were different, but I kind of feel like they're the same in the fact that maybe this is a difference. You know, there's not a large sacrifice in these movies. Nobody really dies or has to give up anything. Bella gets everything that she wants, no matter what. Even in death, she gets a baby, and she gets her family, and she gets her whole, like, she doesn't have to say goodbye to anybody. Nobody, like, dies in battle, like, you know. So there's really not a whole lot of sacrifice that has to happen for her to achieve her end goal of happiness. And, you know, as much as I love Hallmark, it's not, in the end, nobody's like desperate, like destitute, and like losing, you know, everybody's on the verge of losing their homes or their business or their farm or whatever, but nobody really does. Yeah. It all wraps up in the end. So
yeah. What about you, Amy? Any ideas?
Anti-Hallmark thing that I think I noticed the most is none of the best friends, ex-lovers, ever end up with their daughters. So that's definitely a non-Hallmark aspect.
That is a non-Hallmark thing. That's, although, yeah. Who knows? It could happen on The Good Witch. But, how would
that work?
I don't know.
I just got weird images. Okay.
But yeah, so I think it's pretty great. I love them. And I think that I'm very excited that it is now 13 years old, and it makes me feel like I'm an ancient woman because it came out 13 years ago. That's
Tell me
crazy.
About it. Yeah. I feel really old, y'all.
So I think that's it. Is there anything else you guys want to cover or say?
Do we all have a favorite book and a favorite movie?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. You go.
Okay, so my favorite book and favorite movie are Eclipse.
Okay. What about you, Miss Lisa?
My favorite book and movie is New Moon.
Interesting. I actually would believe that my favorite book is Breaking Dawn. And I think my favorite movie is Twilight, the first one. You guys, we covered all of them. That was amazing. Look at us. We got the whole spectrum. That's just diverse planning right there.
That's just fate.
Okay, so that was our special bonus Twilight tribute episode. Thank you guys for coming on. Amy, please tell everyone how they can follow you.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at It's Amy Craig, and you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/weekendallstars.
And how about you, Lisa?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Girl Gone Hallmark.
All right, excellent. And then, as always, I'm at Amber Brainwaves on Twitter. And if you want to follow the podcast, we're at Hallmarkies Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and also on our website, hallmarkiespodcast.com. Feel free to go there. You can leave reviews of movies. It's delightful. And also down in the comments section, please tell us what your favorite Twilight movie was, how you think it's related to Hallmark movies or not. Tell us about your favorite books. Tell us your Twilight origin stories. We'd love to hear. And thank you for celebrating Twilight's 13th and 10-year anniversaries with us. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.